Everything was fine, until it wasn't. One day, the world made sense. The next, it didn't. No warning, no signal. Just the slow, quiet collapse of everything you thought was stable. First, it's a missed call. Then a failed promise. Then the job, the relationship, your confidence, gone. And suddenly, you're in a place you don't recognize, trying to remember how it felt to breathe without pain. It's strange how fast life can shift, how what seemed eternal becomes distant. You walk through familiar streets, but they feel like a different city. Your body moves, but something in you has stopped. The light is still there, but colder now, softer, almost reluctant to touch you. That's when the fight begins. Not with the world, but with yourself. Because pain doesn't knock. It just walks in, takes its place at the table, and dares you to throw it out. And most people don't. They sit with it, feed it, let it grow. Because when things get hard, you start questioning if maybe you deserve it. Maybe you're not strong enough, not worthy enough, not good enough. But here's what they never teach you. Strength isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't punch walls or scream in public. Real strength is quiet. It shows up in small things. Getting out of bed when your heart wants to stay under the covers forever. Washing your face when you feel like a ghost. Holding back the words that would only make the silence worse. When things get hard, you learn who you really are. Not the version of you that smiles for photos or posts quotes online, but the raw, unfiltered soul underneath. The one that bleeds. The one that hopes. The one that still whispers, even after everything, keep going. You start to notice things others miss. The warmth in a stranger's glance. The beauty of rain on your window. The way your hands tremble, but still hold on. That's not weakness, that's resilience. And no, resilience doesn't mean pretending everything is okay. It means knowing it's not, but choosing to walk anyway. The Stoics called this inner fortress the only true freedom. They said you can lose your house, your money, your loved ones, but if you protect your mind, you've lost nothing essential. And in the middle of the storm, when everything else is stripped away, you realize how true that is. You realize that courage was never about being fearless. It was about feeling the fear and acting anyway. You start to understand that suffering isn't an enemy, it's a teacher. Brutal, yes, but honest. It strips away illusions. It shows you what matters, what's real. And sometimes, the lesson is this: you won't always be okay. And that's okay. You're allowed to fall. You're allowed to cry. But don't you dare give up. Because pain is not permanent. Neither is failure. Nor loneliness. These things pass. Like weather. Like night. And even when it feels like the sun will never rise again, it will. Slowly. Quietly. 1 degree at a time. And one day, you'll look back and realize, you survived. And not just that, you grew. You changed. You became something new. So when things get hard, don't waste time asking, why me? Ask instead, what now? What can I do with this pain? Who can I become through this? Because pain, if used right, becomes power. It becomes fire. It becomes clarity. You're not weak for struggling. You're not broken for feeling lost. You are human. And the fact that you're still breathing, still listening, still standing, that means you've already won half the battle. The rest is just taking one more step, then another, and then another. Even if your legs shake, even if your heart screams, even if you can't see the path ahead, walk anyway. Sometimes you won't know what's holding you together. Not hope, not faith, just something deep inside that refuses to quit. Something that says, not yet. It's not dramatic. It's not heroic. It's quiet. You're brushing your teeth with tears in your eyes. You're showing up at work with a heart full of cracks. You're pretending to listen while your mind is screaming. But you're there. You're still there. And that counts for something. People think healing is a straight line. It's not. It's a loop. A spiral. Some days you'll feel almost okay, and then out of nowhere, it hits you again. A scent, a song, a memory, and it all comes rushing back. The pain, the weight, the confusion. And you'll think, I thought I was done with this. But no, this is how it works. You move forward in circles. You fall. You rise. You fall again. And still, you grow. Don't wait for it to be easy. It won't be. Some chapters of your life will hurt like hell. Some lessons will feel unfair. But life doesn't pause until you feel ready. It keeps going. So you have two options: run from the pain, or walk through it. And if you walk through it, slowly, painfully, honestly, on the other side, you'll find something better than relief. You'll find truth. You'll find depth. You'll find yourself. No one sees what it costs you to keep going, they just see that you did. They don't see the nights you barely slept, the moments you wanted to disappear, the quiet battles in your head, the strength it took just to act normal. But one day, those silent victories will matter more than anything else. One day, you'll meet someone who's fighting their own demons, and you'll know what to say. Because you've been there. You'll see someone fall, and you won't judge them. Because you remember what the ground feels like. Hard times teach you empathy. Real empathy. Not pity, not sympathy, but that quiet nod, the one that says, I see you. I've been where you are. And you'll make it through. That's something the happy and untested will never understand. There's a wisdom in pain, a dignity, a raw and sacred knowing. It strips away ego. It humbles you. And in that humbling, you grow. Don't listen to the voice that tells you you're falling behind. You're not. There is no schedule, no finish line, no universal clock that says, you should have healed by now. Healing is not a race. It's a rebirth. And rebirths are violent. They are messy. They come with blood and fire and noise. But from that chaos, something new is born. And that something is stronger. Not because it never broke, but because it did, and it healed in a way that made the cracks sacred. You learn to carry your scars with pride, not to show them off, but to remind yourself, you've been through worse. And you're still here. Pain doesn't mean you failed. Pain means you're human. Every life has dark rooms, locked doors, cold mornings. Everyone you admire has cried in silence, has doubted themselves, has wanted to disappear. You just don't see those parts. They're not on display, but they're there, always. And that should give you hope, because if they made it through, you can too. Stop waiting for permission to feel what you feel. You don't need to justify your sadness. You don't need a perfect reason to be exhausted. The weight you carry is real, even if no one else can see it. And sometimes, just acknowledging that is enough to make it bearable. You are allowed to break. You are allowed to scream. You are allowed to not be okay. But you are not allowed to give up. Giving up is not an option. You owe it to the version of you that made it this far. The version that crawled through every dark tunnel, who stayed alive when everything in them wanted to disappear. That version deserves your loyalty, not your doubt. So when things get hard, really hard, don't run. Sit with it. Listen to it. Let it burn through what no longer belongs. Let it make you clean. And then, step by step, start moving again. Don't chase happiness. Chase meaning. Happiness comes and goes like weather. But meaning, that stays. And often, it's born from the hardest places. From the wounds. From the cracks. From the places you thought were empty. That's where light gets in. That's where the soul is built. You don't need all the answers. You just need the next breath. The next step. The next sunrise. You don't need to feel strong to be strong. You don't need to feel brave to be brave. Strength is in showing up. Even when your hands shake. Even when your voice breaks. Even when your heart is heavy. There's no shame in struggling. But there is beauty in persistence. In quiet endurance. In choosing to live, not perfectly, but honestly. With trembling hands. With open wounds. With a heart that's still learning how to beat again. The moment you stop pretending everything is fine is the moment you begin to rebuild. Not in a rush. Not to impress anyone. Quietly. Privately. From the inside out. You sweep the ashes, piece by piece, without applause. And while the world keeps spinning, you start laying bricks again, stronger ones this time. You begin to question the old definitions. What is strength? What is success? What does it really mean to have it all? Maybe it's not about money, praise, or recognition. Maybe it's about walking through hell and coming out softer, not harder. Kinder, not colder. More aware, more alive. And then something surprising happens. You begin to feel again. Not happiness, not yet, but presence. That raw, stripped down awareness that you are here. Breathing. Not waiting for tomorrow, not stuck in yesterday. Just here. And sometimes, that's more than enough. You learn to stop chasing certainty. Because life doesn't owe you answers, it only gives you moments. You learn to live inside those moments fully. A warm cup of coffee on a bitter morning. A friend who doesn't ask questions, just sits beside you. A song that breaks you and heals you in the same breath. Hardship forces you to look at yourself honestly. Without filters. Without masks. You see your fears, your flaws, your pride. You see how much you depend on things you thought were stable. And when they disappear, you're left with only one question. Who are you when there's nothing to lean on? This is where the Stoic truth becomes real. That peace is not found in control, but in surrender. You cannot command the universe. But you can master your response. You can train your mind not to panic in the storm, but to find shelter within. The Stoics didn't believe in avoiding pain, they believed in using it, transforming it into wisdom, into virtue, into clarity. And so you begin to do just that. Not perfectly, not all at once, but slowly, like a craftsman carving stone. You stop asking, how do I make the pain disappear, and start asking, how can I grow from this? That single shift changes everything. You begin to see that strength is not something you summon, it's something you uncover. It was there all along, buried under fear, doubt, and noise. You remember how much you've survived. You remember that there were days you thought you wouldn't make it, but you did. You're still here. And that's not a small thing. You stop envying people with easier lives. Because you understand now, some of the strongest hearts were forged in fire. The most compassionate eyes have seen pain. The most grounded people have lost everything and still chose to get up. There's a dignity in that, a sacred kind of power. Not loud, not flashy, but real. And once you've tasted it, the shallow rewards of the world lose their shine. When things get hard, it's easy to isolate, to pull away, to protect yourself from more damage. But healing doesn't happen in hiding. At some point, you have to open the door. Let the light in. Let someone see you, not as the version you wish you were, but as you are, unfinished, uncertain, human. That's where true connection lives. Not in perfection, but in presence. In saying, I don't have it all together, but I'm still showing up. In admitting you're tired, but still trying. In asking for help, even when your pride wants silence. You realize that asking for support is not weakness. It's wisdom. No one makes it alone. Even the Stoics had each other. Marcus Aurelius wrote his thoughts down, not because he had mastered them, but because he was trying. Every day. That's what life is, a constant attempt to live with purpose, despite the chaos. And eventually, a strange kind of gratitude appears. Not for the pain itself, but for what it taught you. You begin to say, that broke me, but it also built me. You stop resenting the storm and start respecting it. Because without it, you'd still be asleep, still waiting, still stuck in an illusion of control. Now, you see clearly. You don't need life to be easy. You need it to be real. You need truth, even when it hurts. Because truth leads somewhere. It doesn't leave you empty. It leaves you wide open. And through that opening, something new begins to grow. You start living differently. Not louder, but deeper. You no longer need to prove yourself. You're not chasing applause. You're not running from silence. Because now, you understand that the most valuable things in life are invisible. Peace, clarity, self-respect. And these don't come from the world, they come from within. You begin to guard your energy like something sacred. Because it is. You don't engage in every argument. You don't explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You don't waste time begging for validation. Not because you think you're better, but because you've learned that inner peace is more important than being right. That some people would rather fight than grow, and that's their choice, not your responsibility. You forgive more easily, but not out of weakness. You forgive because you're tired of carrying things that don't belong to you. You stop seeking revenge. You stop replaying the betrayal. It happened, it hurt, it shaped you, but it doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do next. And what you do next is simple. You build, not a perfect life, but a real one. Not a life free of pain, but a life full of meaning. You begin creating moments that matter. A quiet morning with no rush. A walk with someone who listens. A journal page filled with truth. You don't need the world's permission to feel whole. You create wholeness by choosing to be present where you are, as you are. You also stop being afraid of endings. Because now you know, endings are not always bad. Sometimes they are invitations. Doors disguised as disappointments. You lose a job, and discover who you are without a title. You lose a person, and learn how to stand on your own. You lose your sense of certainty, and finally meet yourself for the first time. Loss becomes less of a threat and more of a teacher. It removes the excess, the noise, the masks. And when there's nothing left to hide behind, all that remains is you. Your values, your character, your breath. And maybe that's enough. You stop asking, how do I go back? Because you realize the old version of you no longer fits. It wasn't fake, but it wasn't finished. And now, after all the cracks and cuts and chaos, you're becoming something truer, simpler, stronger. Not because life got easier, but because you got wiser. The things you used to fear no longer control you. You don't panic at discomfort. You don't fall apart at setbacks. You face them, breathe through them, learn from them. There's a stillness inside you now. Not the absence of movement, but the presence of purpose. A steady awareness that says, whatever happens, I'll find a way. That's the real reward. Not comfort, not ease, but confidence. A kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need to shout, because it's rooted in truth. The truth that you've suffered, and survived. That you've lost, and rebuilt. That you've cried, and kept walking. And because of that, you no longer fear the hard days. You don't welcome them, but you don't run either. You face them with open eyes, because you've met yourself in the darkest places and didn't look away. You stood still. You felt the storm. You let it wash over you, and you lived. And now, when things get hard again, and they will, you won't break the same way. You've changed. You've built something inside that doesn't collapse so easily. You've trained your mind not to expect life to be easy, but to make yourself ready. That's the core of Stoicism. It's not about suppressing emotion or denying struggle. It's about becoming so rooted in what matters that nothing external can take it from you. Your peace is not tied to outcomes. Your dignity is not based on status. Your strength is not dependent on winning. It's internal, yours, untouchable. And with that strength, you start showing up differently. You're no longer reactive. You're responsive. You don't just survive, you serve. You help others through their darkness, not with advice, but with presence. You don't fix people. You sit beside them in silence. You hold space. Because you know now, that's what you needed once. And it made all the difference. You become someone others can trust. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Because you've bled, healed, and returned with your hands open. And in a world full of noise, that kind of presence is rare. And powerful. You realize now that your scars are not shameful. They are maps. Records of the places you've been, the things you've endured, the moments you almost gave up, but didn't. They are proof that life tried to break you, and you chose to rebuild. And maybe that's what it all comes down to. Not whether life gets easier, but whether you become someone who keeps walking, no matter what. And so you keep walking, not because it's easy, not because you feel ready, but because you've made a choice, a decision that no matter how long the road, how heavy the weight, or how far the destination, you will not stop. You will not retreat into bitterness. You will not shrink into fear. You will not let the darkness decide who you are. That's what it means to live with intention. To show up, not only when you're strong, but especially when you're weak. To keep your word when it's inconvenient. To act with honor when no one is watching. To speak truth when it costs you. This is the discipline that pain teaches. This is the quiet legacy of endurance. And now you understand something profound. Strength isn't what you show to others. It's what you build in the silence. When there's no one to clap for you, no one to encourage you, just you, standing in the rubble, choosing not to give up. Again and again. There is no breakthrough without breaking. There is no renewal without ruin. What matters is what you do when your illusions fall away. When comfort disappears. When life demands something deeper from you. Do you panic, or do you breathe? You start to see the beauty in the challenge. The wisdom in restraint, the dignity in effort, and you realize, nothing real is ever easy. Love, growth, peace, these things are forged in fire. They are earned through self-awareness, humility, and persistence. You stop expecting the world to shape itself around your desires. You shape yourself to meet the world. That doesn't mean you stop dreaming, it means you dream with your eyes open. You pursue your goals with courage, but without desperation. You act without needing to control every outcome. The Stoics called this living according to nature, accepting what is outside your power, and mastering what is within. And what's within? Your attitude, your choices, your principles. These are yours. No one can take them unless you surrender them. When things get hard, most people try to escape. But escape is not peace. Distraction is not healing. Running only makes the pain louder when it catches up. True freedom comes when you face reality, not because it's kind, but because it's real. And real is enough. So you learn to stay. You stay when it's boring. You stay when it's painful. You stay when your mind begs for a way out. And in that staying, you find power. You find discipline. You find a version of yourself that doesn't crumble under pressure, but crystallizes into something clear, sharp, uncompromising. And once you've tasted that strength, it changes you. You no longer need everything to go your way. You don't fall apart when someone disappoints you. You don't collapse when plans fail. Because you're not here to avoid discomfort, you're here to grow through it. You start living by a different standard. Not how easy your day was, but how you showed up for it. Not whether others approve of you, but whether you lived with integrity. You become loyal to your values, not your feelings. Because feelings change, but honor remains. You learn that peace is not something you find, it's something you build, brick by brick, thought by thought, action by action. You choose what to water inside yourself, and what to let wither. And day by day, your inner garden grows. Eventually, you wake up one morning and realize, it's quieter now. Not because life got easier, but because you did the work. You faced the storm. You listened to the pain. You stopped fighting what you couldn't control. And in that surrender, you found your power. That's when you begin to lead others. Not from a place of superiority, but from understanding. From lived experience. You don't give people advice, you give them presence. You don't tell them to be strong, you remind them that they already are. And maybe, one day, someone will look at you and say, you helped me survive. Not because you had the answers, but because you walked beside them. Because you carried your scars with grace. Because you showed them that pain doesn't have to break you, it can awaken you. In the end, no one escapes hardship. No one lives untouched, but few choose to transform it, to use it, to let it burn away the unnecessary and reveal what's essential. The Stoics believed that adversity reveals character, and now, so do you. Because you've been through fire, and you came out with purpose. You are no longer afraid of hard times. You understand their role. You welcome the challenge, not because it's pleasant, but because it's meaningful. Because every trial is a mirror. Every difficulty is a lesson. And every scar is a mark of evolution. You are no longer chasing happiness. You are building character. You are no longer waiting for life to get easier. You are becoming someone who can handle what life brings. And that is true freedom. So when things get hard again, and they will, remember who you are. Not what the world calls you. Not what your past says about you, but who you've become through everything you've endured. Steady, clear, unshakable. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to stay honest. Stay grounded. Stay moving. One step, one breath, one decision at a time. The storm may not stop, but you will no longer fear it. Because now, you are the storm.